what was your reaction, and have you any additional fallout from the exchange between Sherman, Bevel, and Pete Carroll last night?
I mean, not that I've heard. It's pretty early out there still, so we'll see if anything flares up through the day. I'll reach out to some people out there. But look, I mean, I think you have to look at the DNA of that team, the makeup of that team, where the alpha dogs are on that team for the most part. You've got a defense with some really strong personalities. You've got probably 6 or 7 guys on that side of the ball who on any other team would be sort of clearing away the guy, But because they're also, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill, you've got, Bobby Wagner. So I think that Pete Carroll, one of the things he does most masterfully is juggle all those personalities, all those sort of type A guys, all those natural leaders, and sometimes it flares up and they play with a passion. That sometimes results in overly physical play and sometimes results in the kind of sideline blobs we saw. There was one of them, 6-7 weeks ago when Cam Chancellor was still hurt.
Yeah, but
Jay, he was jawing, and coaches were jawing then, and position coaches. And
this felt different, man. I know that this is how they operate, but the interference during the game, the moment it went, it's one thing if the players are getting after it. I know that that's how they operate and motivates them. This just felt a little different. It's a bad look for Sherman, I think.
No, it's not. I'm not defending what he did, but I'm just saying in the construct of that team, I'm sure he'll be fine. I'm sure he'll be talked about it behind closed doors. But one of the things that Pete Carroll does so well is massage these situations. Yeah. And he'll get him and Bevel in a room away from everybody else, and they'll hash it out. And I don't think that this is going to be something that sets their season off course or comes back to haunt them. This is they kind of live by the sword and die by the sword. And when they go down in whatever fashion, they don't go down. They don't go down quietly. I just. You go back to how the season ended in the Super Bowl a few years ago, and then the year, and then they bounce back and they're in the playoffs the year after that and fighting for a Super Bowl again. I just think this gets kind of like Beckham, you know what I mean, where he gets all this flack the weeks he flares up, and then he'll be awesome for 7-8 weeks and nobody will talk about it.
Yeah, JLC, the other team in this game with the LA Rams, they looked horrible, and Jared Goff looked overmatched. But obviously, we know they're on their interim coach, John Fossil, who I've known for a long time since he was in high school, obviously, because his dad was my coach. But he's likely not the next head coach of the Rams. But what kind of coach do they need to thrive out there in L.A.? Because it's not just the X's and O's. You know what I mean?
You're right. You're not just the coach of that football team. You're the coach of that football market. You're trying to recultivate that as a home team football market. Go look at. I think if you go back through like Sports Business Journal, some of these publications, every week they'll either online or elsewhere, Twitter, whatever, put out the local ratings. The Rams game loses to other NFL games in that market. People are accustomed to watching the best game, putting their money on the best game, their fantasy football teams, etc. The idea of a home team that we're going to live and die with is not in their DNA. It's been 25 years. So you don't just need somebody who's going to be good at X's and O's and help some players develop. You need to actually capture people's imaginations out there. If you're going to lose, you better lose 38-35 in a blaze of glory. You can't go every week scoring literally 0 points at halftime or 3 if you happen to have one decent series. That can't happen. So it has to be someone with personality. It's got to be someone who can help Stan Kroenke sell that market to people who are going to buy PSLs for tens of thousands of dollars, people who are going to buy suites, luxury suites for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you need someone who's going to help in that regard and someone who can try to cultivate that quarterback and play something akin to sexy football if possible. So it's an offensive-minded guy. It's someone with a pedigree. It's someone with a persona that is going to be in some ways bigger than the team. If they can't get any of those guys, then it's Josh McDaniels or Kyle Shanahan or whomever, but I expect them to exhaust a lot of other possibilities before they get there, if they get there.
That's good stuff. Jason La Canfora with us here on Tiki and Tierney, CBS Sports NFL Insider. So, Jay, what is this story? The league, I know, is investigating the Giants. There was a malfunction with the headset, the walkie-talkie, and to transmit some information. This isn't going to be a big deal. Please tell me it's not.
No. Look, they'll get fined. There's rules about what's to happen with game day communications. Remember now, they've changed things, so the headsets are more out, and it's you've got the tablets now and all that stuff, and there's very explicit rules about when somebody's communication goes down, then everybody should go out. You're not allowed just to then get your own sort of wireless or whatever communication system and just start using it. So I don't think. I don't want to jinx anything, but I don't think Ted Wells will have anything to do with this. I don't think there'll be a congressional inquiry. I don't think the league will have to spend thousands of hours and millions of dollars to investigate it. I think, within a matter of weeks, they'll be fined for not complying with league rules, and that'll be the end of it. It better be the end of it. I don't have the stomach for any more of this stuff.
Yeah, right.
Cosign, Jay. Cosign.
We almost got a deflate gate, too. Luckily, they squashed that.
But even
one.
that, how can there be they changed the rules?
I know.
So, unless the implication was some third-party league employee was trying to screw the Giants, you know what I mean? The Steelers don't even hold the balls anymore. It's like...
Yeah,
Please,
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, we'll talk about drama and controversy. Jerry Jones finally said Dak Prescott's going to be our guy. I mean, what has this done to the Cowboys? This speculation that Tony Romo should or could be getting snaps.
I don't think it does anything. This is the Cowboys, man. This is what they are. When you're there for any period of time, you quickly find out that this ain't your average team and he ain't your average owner. And it's his baby. And at the end of the day, it's, Jason Garrett and, whomever else, the offensive coordinator, like that. Just a macro issue like this is going to come down to Jerry's whims. He told you who he was. He showed you who he was again early in the week. Now, after Troy comes out and kind of puts him in line, then he comes back 2 days later and sort of clarifies. But, he's Jerry bleeping Jones, and Tony Romo is his boy. And he's paid him $130 million, including $18 million this year, to try to get a Super Bowl. If this goes on another week, another 2 weeks, and he's sitting there saying, all right, I've been to the playoffs before. We got to be different in the playoffs. They're taking away the run a little bit more. Dez hasn't done anything in a month. Witten hasn't done anything in a month. I like Cole Beasley, but are we really going to be able to run an offense, a passing game through Cole Beasley in January and beat 3 playoff defenses? Well, it didn't really work against the Giants, and it didn't really work against Minnesota. And even the week before that, we were under 200 yards passing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all real. Dak's had the ball in his hands 29 times on third downs the last 2 weeks, either design dropbacks or him running with the ball. They've converted 2 of those.
Wow.
Okay?
Oof.
That's happened.
Yikes.
They've attempted the second fewest passes in the league that travel over 20 yards in the air. The only team that's attempted fewer is San Francisco, and that's what blamed Gabbert for the first 8 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
When you get to January, okay, Elliott hasn't hit his league average in rushing for 4 straight weeks. I'm not saying he's not still productive, but he's also coming up on 300 carries and 325 touches. So do the math. I mean, I wrote a big column on it on Wednesday. Outside personnel guys, more than I'd say I think I talked to 5 of them. 3 of them more or less said I'd stay with the kid.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't make the decision. Jerry does. And one more. Tampa's a good defense, a rising defense. If it's ugly Sunday night, Jerry will absolutely at least consider it. Whether he does it or not remains to be seen.
I want to explore that dynamic a little deeper here. We're talking to Jason La Canfora, CBS Sports NFL Insider. Let's just say, for the sake of conversation, Dak Prescott does not play well. I'm with you, by the way. I don't think there's any doubt at some point we're going to probably see Tony Romo if this continues. I've said that for the last 2 weeks here. But if he doesn't play well and Jerry is adamant, got to go to Romo. But Garrett is adamant that it's Prescott. Now, we all say that Garrett's got no juice. He's got no power. And at the end of the day, I kind of believe that. But in this situation that I just explained, are you telling me behind closed doors, if Jason Garrett is assertive and he's, Jerry, we got to stick with Dak, that Dak's not playing?
I mean, you can sort of massage Jerry. You can kind of, if you're an artful enough debater, if you've done your homework, you could probably plant an idea early in that conversation that by the end of it he thinks was his idea in the first place. But you better have your A game on. I mean, look, he really wanted to draft Johnny Manziel, and he kind of got talked out of it. But this is a little different because it's happening in real time, and you're seeing it in the statistics, you're seeing it in the box score. Now you've seen it at least for 1 week in the win-loss column. Could it happen? I mean, if Jason really dug his heels in, and he convinced Jerry at the end of the day that Jerry wanted to stick with Dak all along? Yeah. But how dug in is Jerry? And at the end of the day, Jerry's signing everybody's paychecks, and football operations stops and starts with Jerry. It's a different setup than any other team in the league.
Yeah, but how can we believe that Tony Romo, who really hasn't played in 2 years, can actually play without any rust or just, he's not going to be.
I can tell you this about Tony Romo. He's 15-4 in his last 19 starts, and in his last 16, he's 13-3 with a QB rating of 110. If Tony Romo gets hurt, you go back to the kid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to go to Romo, I would suggest he hasn't made a regular season start since, before last Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
You got to give him week 16 to get the kinks out, and then you see him in week 17, and now you've got to buy, and away you go.
Jay, not a ton of time, but I know you're close to the Ravens. I know Steve Smith, who's always passionate and animated all the time. He's just, he's just one of those. He's the base. I love him. He's a warrior. Yeah. And when things go awry, you kind of know with his body language. But I guess he had an episode at practice, and it's on the heels of not being overly thrilled with the offense last week. What's happening with Steve Smith?
I think it's who he is. As you know, he wears his passions on his sleeve, and there's a lot of frustration there. They had an extra day of prep. They looked at that Patriots game as a playoff game, and they were absolutely inept offensively, and they felt like they left a lot on the table. They've talked all year about being balanced. They ran the ball 4 times in the first half. Of their first 16 plays, 14 were passes. They didn't run on consecutive downs until midway through the third quarter. They had 26 passes to 4 runs in the first half. The week before that, Flacco had gone at it pretty good with Marty Mornhinweg, or 2 weeks before that after the Cincinnati game, because they really didn't have any sense of urgency to their offense. They weren't throwing deep enough. And then here they go 2 weeks later after a nice game against Miami, and it's the same thing. Nothing but screens, no downfield intent, and a complete abandoning of the run game. They've been through a lot of coordinators there. I don't think Steve Smith's the only one who's frustrated, but a lot of it's on Flacco too. He wasn't taking chances downfield. It was a lot of checkdowns. They know they've got to win out now to get in the playoffs, and I suspect that they get a lot of joy this week against Philadelphia, and then they go to Pittsburgh with the entire season on the line, and maybe Steve Smith balls out.